All right, now what we're going to do is focus on that hero shot that is going to introduce our new character. So I noticed that when I opened up the level, I didn't even kind of like talk about this, but I found myself going from back here. I placed cameras back there. I have one right there, and over here, and I feel as if I naturally found my way going from back in that direction all the way up to the front. And there was never a mention in the brief that that's the direction you're going, but it just felt natural. And I think that there's, a good level design and such, because lighting, going from dark all the way up to here into this portion right here, which is very bright, very open, felt like that's a natural path. And more of an observation. It's pretty cool that that happened. But I really like the use of space around here. I think this is a awesome composition right there. I really like that. Very close to the ground. Again, feels small, but if I push in like that, I think right here it'll be a great opportunity to see the character introduced right here. And again, we want to have a threatening character. That's what was requested, that the character feels threatening, menacing. We're gonna duke it out with this guy, however we do it in this game. This is all fictitious, by the way. It's not like a game I'm currently working on. It's just making it up. But say it's a third person or first person shooter, whatever, but having our guy enter into the scene right here feels like a great opportunity to showcase him, especially with these framing elements, making things feel as if they are, picture within the picture. This is our picture right here, and that's another picture back there that is being framed into. And I think it's a perfect opportunity, especially seeing these, light rays, kind of parallax with us as we come in. I think our character should just drop right down, thump, to the cool 3-point land, almost like he's like, "You go no further." That sounds cool. That's exciting. What's cool is that when you're working on shots, it's very important to create something that inspires you as well. And I always think about movies, games I played, TV shows, anything that has a really cool composition, really cool sequence that inspires me. And that could be reference, that could be considered reference, and but try to find something that makes you say, "That's awesome." And that's the key to being able to do something, to really make good artwork, it should inspire you too. It shouldn't feel like a grind, like a job. And that's easier said than done. I'll be the first to tell you that working in the industry can be taxing at times. However, you want to find that inspiration, and you want to find what really motivates you and makes you put so much time into something, so much energy into something. Then you look at it and say, that's it. I love it. That looks so cool. And that's actually what really got me into creating artwork. Is as I'm talking, don't want you guys to not know what I'm doing right here, but I'm going to start messing around with the different camera widths and such like that, see if any of them kind of work with me a little bit better. But anyways, like I was saying, that's why I create art. Because whoops, I'm actually messing with the wrong camera. I was wondering why nothing was happening over there. Let's drop one in. I was getting too caught up with just tumbling around over there. But and then we can dive into here, just like what we were doing before. Cool. Okay. Anyways, like I was saying, that's always why that's why I like creating art myself. And it's because you get those opportunity to, I think I have to go wide on this. And I can't go crush in. I got to go wide. Maybe even, let's see what going the other direction. 28. Let's see how that feels. Yeah, okay. Whoops. Keep hitting the wrong button. There. That's cool. Yeah, I like that. And I think that's a great opportunity. And I'm thinking you can go right here, spill right down, and fill up that shot. So like I was saying, having the opportunity to create something that motivates you, make you look at it and go, that's awesome. But then also to get someone else to view it and have the same reaction is just amazing. It's really an inspiring type of feeling that you get. And that's why we're all here. That's why we're taking these lessons. That's why you guys, that's why I'm honored to have you guys listen to me go on and on about this stuff. It's because there's something enriching about it. There's something incredible about that. This is actually not our establishing shot. This is our hero shot. So that's why we do it. We want to create something, pull from things that inspired us to be able to, pass that on and show to other people. Hey, this is cool. I really, really like this. And you just get that sense of, that's awesome. Okay, so what we're going to do is we have these cameras all right here. And we're actually going to start creating our sequencer files. And I'll tell you what we're going to do too. I like to keep things a little tidy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of those cameras. I think I just named them all cams. Yep, there we go. And I'm going to select them all. I'm actually going to put them in their own folder. Let's call that folder Cinematics. Boom. Okay. And there we go. So now, and I can actually take it outside of, there we go. Let's see if I can take it. No, actually, I'm probably going to have to keep it. That's fine. That's fine. We'll just keep them all right there so I know where I can grab them in Cinematics. Okay, so let's go back over here to our default view. Hit perspective. Cool. Oops. There we go. Let's go back to Cinematic. Default view. All right. There we go. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't moving this camera back over here, the one that I created that shot with. Okay, so now what we're going to do is open up our content browser, and let's create a new folder in here. We can call it. I don't want to do it in there. Actually, let's get rid of that. Delete. Yes, I would like to delete content. New folder. There we go. It's on its own. Cinematics. Right click, animation, and we are looking for level sequencer. And what the level sequencer is a file that essentially you tell it which actors in the scene you want to have move or influenced in a timeline. So I'm a big fan of always naming like the first few letters in a file. It identifies the type of file it is, and there's a reason for that, and I'll get to it, but I like to have the first few be an identifier as to what the file is. So this SEQ is a sequencer file. Sequencer, let's call it Sun. We call it ST for Sun Temple. So we're being very specific. EST, establishing shot 1. Okay, and we can actually duplicate that because there's nothing in there, and it's just, whoops, we can duplicate that. There's nothing in there. It's just those files. Great. And then 3, 1, 2, 3, and I think we actually had a fourth, and that's good because that gives us the opportunity to cut if we need to. All right, so right now we are going to open up this sequencer file, sequencer 1, and as we see, there's nothing in here. We're going to go ahead and grab our camera. This should be camera 1. Yep, camera 01. And I'm going to go ahead and add it. I'm going to add sequencer to file, add establishing shot camera 01. Now it's going to do two things. One is going to add the camera, but then it's also going to add ourselves the components. So all these components right here, it's not just the camera, but it's the components, it's our transform. It adds more than just, hey, here's your camera there. And we are no longer going to manipulate the camera here. So it added it to our file, and we no longer have to work with it here. Now, does this still work? Everything over here still work? Yes. However, we're going to want to focus with it right here because this is all going to be animated. Now, if I close the sequencer, say I make all the changes to here, I change my focal length, I can do my transform. If I change everything there, it's not going to, and I close it, it's going to default back over to here. So whatever is here is animated. I want to make sure there's a key for it. So our first shot is actually back over here. Forgot about that. We started this guy over here, having this little low angle shot. That's pretty cool. Okay, so I am going to click transform. All of our rotation, locations, and scales and such, and our camera components. Let's see, I kind of like that. Let's actually go to our camera 1 so we can see it right there. And again, I can hit my, go to cinematic view, whoops, and then go back to our camera. I can hit my grid. I can also, if I like to, I like doing this as well, showing my action safe and title safe. It's kind of like margins. You just want to make sure that everything is being rendered in. Your focal areas and your main points are where it's supposed to be. So it's essentially like safe zones. So something I picked up being an animator is that I never want to start on 0. Any kind of keys should not start on 0. Reason being, and I like giving myself a full 2 seconds, so I'll start over here on 60 and actually key everything right there, key my components and such, focal length, blah, 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 all those guys. And not worry about having keys at 0. And the reason is it gives yourself a little bit of a buffer in case you have to slide some stuff around, you want to start things a little bit earlier. When you do go for a render, it does allow the lights to kind of burn in. Sometimes it starts, really bright and kind of settles into it. So it just gives time for everything to kind of settle, and also gives you a little bit of buffer room in order to allow for any kind of editing, any kind of changes that you got to do down the road. One of my first animation instructors said something very profound to me. He said that animation is all about reanimation, meaning you're going to be animating something quite a bit over and over. I'm going to give myself 4 seconds here on the timeline. Bring it right to there. Switch over to default view. Grab that camera. Let's see here. And I can see down here what I'm looking at here. What I want to do is just add a little bit of motion to it. I don't like still cameras. I like having a little bit of motion. Kurosawa, my absolute favorite director, was a big fan of adding some sort of natural motion to his cameras. Big fan of using environments, wind, rain, fire, things like that. A little bit of motion with the cameras, just to make it feel as if it's lived in. Doesn't want to feel so static. Alright, and then what's happening right now is that these are all at a Bezier curve, meaning if you were to look at it, it gets this kind of almost this S look to it. It means it eases out, eases into the next curve. But for camera movement, I actually prefer having a very linear motion, and that's actually going to help us out a lot in the editing process too. I like having the cameras feel very, very controlled and smooth. It mimics real-world type of camera work, where cameras, they would actually build a rail for a camera, so that there's no bumps, movements, or anything like that. And then if I wanted to add some sort of camera movement like a shake or something, then I can animate that on top of it. But I like having a very clean, crisp camera movement like that. Let's go ahead and save it. And we're going to say that that one's good enough to move on. We're going to save that, go to our second camera and do a little bit of polishing on that one as well. Set on over there. Okay, so let's just go ahead and exit out of there and open up our other sequencer. Here we are. Switch over to camera 2. Okay, so this looks a little bit different than what we've seen before when we place our cameras. Things feel not the same focal length, and this feels very, very wide. This happens sometimes. I'm actually glad this happens, just to kind of point it out. So we're not in cinematic view. If you look over here, we're in default view. So sometimes when you go back to cameras and you say, gosh, what's going on? That looks a little bit different. Make sure you switch to cinematic view. And what that does sometimes is it pops you back to a perspective, and then you have to select that camera again. And boom! Looks like we're right back to where we were before, which is great. So we have our camera selected. We'll open up our file right here. We're going to add our camera again, just like we did our previous one. Here we are. And just like what I did before, I'm going to start at 60. Go ahead and key everything right here. And you know what I'm going to do with this one as well is I'm going to mess around with the focal distance, the focal length. And maybe I can animate that as opposed to animating the camera. And this is cool too, just adding a little bit of movement, just something to make it feel a little bit alive. So first off, let's go ahead and get rid of all of our game elements like these lights and these reflection probes. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. And then what I like to do with the focal distance is it's set to 10,000. I always take it down all the way to 0. And what that does is it makes everything blurry. And maybe we'll get a little interesting with this. Let's go ahead and key that. And then we'll do like, say 10 frames. And then we'll put it into focus. And we're going to pick a spot to put into focus. We're going to pick this guy right here, our foreground, to put into focus. There we go. And let's add just a hair of movement. Just a little bit. Nothing major. Just so that we can get a little bit of parallaxing. Again, 4 seconds. Why am I doing 4 seconds? It's just enough time for me to be able to edit. And, kind of grab something out of there, and I have a lot to work with. I'm not going to use all 4 seconds. I never render out everything that I'm going to use. Just what I'm going to use, I should say. Say if I want to have, maybe a second, 2 seconds out of the shot, I'll get 4 seconds. That way I have a head and a tail that I can trim if needs be. And then you might say, like, well, Bill, why are you doing the focus in the beginning and if you're not going to use the whole thing? Well, maybe the focus works, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe I'll be able to get some nice movement out of it towards the end. Just give yourself options. Giving yourself options. Let's come over here and tumble around. And I'm just going to pull in with that camera. We can see right here. Pull in just a hair right there and move it down just so it's staying along the ground. Transform. Bop. You know what I'm going to do as well is that I'm going to make this full screen. And I just want to give a little bit of movement on that focal length. Just make sure that this guy right here, and again, we can go ahead and hit G, turn that off. I want this guy right here, this big, I don't know what this is, fire pit. Make that stay in focus as well. So same thing, I take it out of focus and then bring it back to kind of find that good happy medium. And then of course, what I want to do, like I said before, is I make all of this very linear. Oops, didn't want to make that small. Let's bring that back up. That's cool. Just a little bit of movement to the camera. Yeah. We get a little bit of movement with those flames in the background. Cool. I like that. Let's go ahead and save that. Go ahead and close that down, and it's time to move on to our next one. I'm going to open up this sequencer file. There we are. Okay, and I'm going to add that camera. Again, keeping things nice and tidy. We have this folder right here where all our cameras are. You know what? Just because I am the type, let me make sure I name that. I like to keep it nice and tidy. Let's go ahead and add this. Okay, again, bring this over to 60, give ourselves some wiggle room if needed. Camera components, all that. Let's change our camera to camera 3. Again, you see right here, it's like, wait a minute, that looks a lot different than what I did before. Well, it's because it popped over to default view. This happens, especially when you start tumbling around with different cameras and such. So, there we are. Perfect. All right. So, with here, you know what? I love that there's this repeating element. This guy right here, that one right there. Oops, didn't want to do that. So, let's see if we can do something with this. So, I like the big screen here, showing our camera view. Let's go ahead and add the grids like I was talking about. You don't have to do this. And again, this doesn't show up in your final render. This is just nice guidelines to work with so that, you know, you kind of keep things where your composition you would like to. So, and even with that, you know, I kind of see my interesting focal point is right here. The kind of these two shapes, you know, repeated shapes and such. I like that. Okay, so from here, let's go ahead and take that to 180. And I wonder if I can do, just pull in. I want to truck pull in. What do I want to do here? Oops, didn't want to do that. Oops, didn't want to do that either. So I'm going to pull in there. That's kind of cool. Switch it over to a linear, like what we're talking about. Oops, didn't want to do that. Just trying to expand right here. There we go. Boom, linear. Let's see how this movement feels. Cool. You know what I like to do is, let's try this. Let's have some fun with this one. Let's actually change our focal point right in the middle of this shot. So I'm going to keep this guy right here. Nice crisp focus. And I can help the, you know, really push more of the blur that we see in the background by changing our aperture. By bringing the aperture down, it really enhances what we have blurred out. So, and what that does is how much light is allowed into the camera lens. And of course, there is no light here. This is, you know, real world type of parameters, but it helps us really determine that. So let's go with that. That's cool. I like that. Let's key that. And then halfway through, we're going to adjust again. Here we are. And then we're going to switch a little bit more. Nice. There we go. Switch to the focal point back here. Whoops. Whoopsie daisy. Oh, Oh, you know what? That's actually a really good point. I like to just take a moment to show. I kind of made a little goof. I meant to hit the key, but I accidentally hit the back, which takes me to the previous key. And then you say, ah, geez, darn it. How do I get back to, there's a key on this guy, the current aperture. How do I get, oh, actually I did set the key. What I was going to say is that since I keep all the keys in the same frame, I can always just step back with this, with the current aperture, and that's where my focal distance is. That's why I like to keep everything, on the same key when it comes to things like that. All right, just oops, didn't do that. Not that guy. Let's adjust a little bit more. Keep that guy nice and crisp. There we go. Bring that down a little bit. Key. Now here's a perfect example of that. I want to add more of the manual focal distance and aperture with the same key on the transform. So I just take that back, hit the next key for the transform. I'm right at the end, so now I can adjust these guys. There we go. There we go. Nice and crispy in the background. Okay, and we will make sure. Now you notice I'm not spending too much time with this. I'm not finessing. I'm not. Let's play this through. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. So a nice little movement there. Very cool. I like that. Save it. Go ahead and close it, and we get to move on to the next one here. Okay, I'm going to open up our next sequencer file here. I'm going to add this camera. Now there's something about the sequencer files I have not done yet. And I usually wait to the end. When I say end, I mean right before I render. And you will be doing rendering passes. It's not, you can do it beforehand. It's really not that big of a deal. But you will not be able to render anything until you actually add what's called a shot track to your sequencer. And what the shot track is doing is just saying, hey, what would you like to render? Which camera would you like to render? Now, we're only using one camera here. You are more than welcome to add as many cameras as you want, and it's almost like editing live in sequencer. That's cool. I have no problems with that. I think, I do have some artists that enjoy doing it that way as well. Personally, I like to render everything out and then use editing software that I'm familiar with. Like Premiere. We'll be using Premiere for this lesson. There's really no wrong way of doing it. It's just your workflow. And the reason I like to do it is, say I want to, just really focus in on one shot. I want to change the lighting. I want to change, add some effects. For me personally, it's much easier just to, go into my folder and see my shots that are listed out and named out correctly. I can dive into that, add as many effects as I want to it, and it becomes more manageable. It's very easy, and we'll see this a little bit later. We'll be adding some lights and some effects and some animation. It can get really full in a sequencer file very, very easily. And personally, I like to keep things separated so that it doesn't get too cumbersome. I always say that whenever you're doing any kind of digital art, whether it's animation, sequencer files, cinematics, anything like that, the more organized you are, the better off you're going to have with creating kind of edits, with adjusting things. It just makes it easier for you as an individual, and that way you can just focus on creating the cool artwork as opposed to fighting different layers and things like that. So anyways, the shot track, when you do that, you have to make sure that you add which shots should be doing here. You'll be adding I'm sorry, not the shot track. What am I saying? It's a camera cut track. Whoopsie daisy. That was a gaff. Camera cut track. You're going to be adding the camera right here. So this is the camera we have in the shot. which is camera 4, you need to be adding that. Shot track is when you have like a master sequencer file and you can have multiple different sequencer files render out at once. If you like to say, okay, now let's have a master one, render them all out, go, and come back, later. Say you're leaving for lunch, you're taking a long lunch, and you're going to come back. That's fine too. Again, I don't have a problem with it. I'm okay with opening up each sequencer file, rendering out, close it, open up the next one. I don't have a problem with that. Again, it's just so that it keeps things manageable for myself. Other people say, man, Bill, I don't have a problem with that at all. I can totally, have 50 different VFX for each one of these guys and create folders and, have it all managed. You know what? Good on you. That's impressive. I'm very impressed with you. I don't. I like to keep it as simple for myself as possible. Okay, so here again, going to give myself 60 frames. Right to there. That's 2 seconds worth of time. And again, I'm just going to give a little bit of motion to this camera. And I sound like a broken record when it comes to this, but is this my final? Is this, locked in stone? This is it? No, it's not. I can adjust, and that's totally fine. And actually, real time, I just want to draw attention to why I generally don't add a camera cut track while I'm editing. Again, I like to keep things as simple for myself as possible. And the camera cut track will render out what you have placed, what you have stretched out all the way to this red line. And I just moved this red line because I wanted to give us some more time here. And I like the flexibility of being able to do so. But when I do that, it's just one more thing where I have to select that and go, oh yeah, don't want to forget this. Make sure I bring that out because it would stop rendering. It will go all the way up there and then it'll say, whoop, okay, we're all done with our cameras. There's no camera that's selected to keep going. Is it a minor thing? It definitely is a minor thing. But just one less thing to worry about or to keep in mind, because when you get into the flow of things, you're moving cameras, you're moving characters, you're getting things going. You're like, I like that, perfect. And then you have to go back, oh yeah, let me adjust my camera cut. Let me not forget about that thing. I like finding myself a groove. I like getting into it and saying, you know what? It's working for me. I'm just kind of, in that moment. And again, just one less thing to worry about. One less thing to worry about. We're going to go ahead and hit transform. And again, I like having this as linear. Oops, why do I keep closing that on me? All right. Let's take a look what it looks like here in Camera Cut 4. Looks a little wide. Do I have that a little wide? It's not in a cinematic viewport? Or was it like that? No, maybe it was just not a cinematic viewport. Alright, let's see here. Not bad. I think that it's a little bit too much movement. Maybe it can start right here. Let me kind of catch the tail end of it. Like, that parallax. Let's kind of, what I can do here is I can just hit transform. Bring this back to 30, or 60 I should say. Delete all that. Select here, shift select, move it over to 60. Is that linear? That does not look linear. That looks like more Bezier to me. Let's make sure we select these, hit, there we go. There we go. That feels pretty good. I like that, kind of that reveal of that additional character back there. That's awesome. Okay, let's save that. I feel pretty good with our establishing shots right now. What we're going to focus on next is lining up that hero shot for where our character is introduced into the level, or menacing, scary boss character that we're about to duke it out with. So let's go ahead and call that as a chapter right there. And we're going to dive into our hero character shot next.